What if the thing you've spent your whole life trying to hide is actually your gift? What if not belonging was never a curse, but a calling? You weren't just the quiet one. You were the kid who stared out the window and saw stories in shadows while the world rushed past. The one who walked through birthday parties feeling like a ghost in a mirror. The one who sensed what others missed, who asked questions no one knew how to answer. You weren't just different, you were awake. And maybe no one told you how rare that is. So you learned to smile when expected, to speak only when it was safe, to nod even when you disagreed, just to keep the peace. But beneath all of it, something felt off. Not wrong in a loud way, just misaligned. Like your life was happening around you, not through you, like you were surrounded but still unseen. And over time you started to wonder, if no one ever really gets me, maybe I'm the problem. Maybe I'm broken, maybe the ache inside me is proof that I'm flawed. But what if it isn't? What if that ache, that silent, persistent ache, was never a sign of dysfunction? What if it was a message, a signal? You feel deeply because you were built for depth. You retreat because the noise of the world isn't calibrated for the texture of your inner life. You carry the emotions of others because your empathy isn't a trait, it's a frequency. You weren't designed for the surface. You were meant for the depths, for meaning, for the spaces beneath words. You walk through this world like a radio tuned to a station no one else hears. And that can feel isolating, it can feel unbearable. But the ache you carry isn't here to punish you. It's here to awaken you. Because most people who go on to shape the world first had to survive feeling like a mistake in it. You were never meant to blend in. You were meant to remember, to reclaim, to become. And yes, it's lonely at first, but that loneliness isn't empty. It's spacious, it's sacred, it's clearing the way. You started this journey feeling like a question mark in a world of period. But maybe that question isn't a flaw. Maybe it's the beginning of the answer. The ache was never the wound, it was the whisper, the compass. And now, after all this time, you're finally turning toward what it's been pointing to all along. You've walked through rooms full of people and felt your presence disappear, said something real and watched the silence swallow it, watched the people around you miss what mattered over and over again. Not because they were cruel, but because they weren't built to see what you see. And slowly you began to dim. You stopped playing your favorite songs around people who called them depressing. You stopped sharing the dreams that made your voice shake. You edited your thoughts before they could leave your mouth. You trained yourself not to need too much, because needing too much always came with a cost, but there's a cost to hiding too. And it's the quietest kind of grief, the kind that doesn't scream, it just stacks up. Every laugh you faked, every part of yourself you filed down, every moment you made yourself smaller to keep the peace, until one day you realize the belonging you've been chasing was just the absence of rejection. Carl Jung once wrote, "Loneliness does not come from having no people about one, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to oneself." You've felt that, haven't you? It's not the silence that hurts, it's what happens after you speak and realize no one really heard you. It's being surrounded by noise and still feeling like a distant signal. It's trying to translate your soul into a language that was never meant for it, and it's exhausting. You've rewritten texts 12 times, then deleted them. You've walked out of parties and cried in your car, unsure what triggered it. You've stayed quiet in conversations that left you emptier than being alone. And still, you tried to fit in. You tried to earn your place by softening your voice, hiding your intensity, becoming just enough to be tolerated, but the price was too high, because the more you were accepted, the less you felt like yourself. So maybe the problem isn't that you don't belong in this world. Maybe the world you see, the one you long for, doesn't exist yet. and maybe you're here to help build it. You weren't made to be normal. You were made to notice what others miss, to ask the questions no one else is asking, to bring truth where there's illusion, to bring depth where there's noise. You weren't made to be liked, you were made to be real. And if that means walking alone sometimes, let it. If that means being misunderstood, let it. Because somewhere along the way you'll stop craving rooms that ask you to shrink. You'll stop chasing people who need you to be quieter. And when you do, when you finally stop leaving yourself to be loved, something shifts. The ache softens, the mask cracks, and the ones who see you, they begin to appear quietly, gradually, authentically. You'll look into someone's eyes one day and see it. Not recognition of who you've become, but remembrance of who you always were. And in that moment, you'll realize you were never too much. You were just waiting for people who could meet you where you already live. You can feel the moment someone's energy changes, before the words shift, before the smile fades. You know something's off. You've walked into rooms and known without a word who was hurting, who was pretending, who was holding themselves together with string. Most people call it overthinking, but it's not that. It's overfeeling, it's perception, it's pattern, it's emotional fluency in a world that barely speaks the language. You've probably asked yourself, why does everything feel so heavy to me? And the answer is simple. Because you're not skimming the surface. You're living in the undertow. You were never meant to glide above life. You were meant to feel it, to taste it, to translate the frequencies most people don't even know are there. But here's the cost of that gift. It often feels like exile. You've shared something raw, a truth, a feeling, a piece of your soul, and watched it slide past someone's eyes like it was in another language. You've tried to describe your inner world, only to be met with awkward silence or a kind smile that didn't reach their understanding. So you stopped sharing. Not all at once, not dramatically, just a little at a time. You laughed at the jokes you didn't find funny. You nodded through shallow conversations. You kept your real thoughts behind glass, visible to you, but never offered. And the loneliness, it wasn't just being alone, it was being with others and still feeling like the only one who could see the elephant in the room, the sadness in the music, the unsaid truth in the air. That's a different kind of isolation. It's not social, it's existential, and maybe you've told yourself, I must be too much, too emotional, too intense, too strange. But what if that feeling isn't a flaw? What if it's a signal? What if loneliness isn't the absence of people, but the presence of depth in a world that fears it? There's an ancient story of Cassandra, the woman gifted with prophecy. She saw what others couldn't, warned them, pleaded with them, and no one believed her. They called her mad, dramatic, cursed, but she wasn't cursed. She was just awake in a world that preferred dreams. And maybe that's you, not broken, not delusional, not too much, just early. You see what others don't. You feel what others avoid. You live in the spaces most people never enter. Carl Jung once said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But the path to becoming isn't paved with approval. It's carved through solitude. It's built in the silence after your truth is ignored, in the empty space left by the people who couldn't meet you where you live, in the quiet decision to stop apologizing for what makes you real. Your loneliness is sacred. It means your soul refused to go numb. It means you are still listening, still sensing, still alive beneath the surface. And that sensitivity, the thing that has made life so sharp, so raw, so complicated, it's not a design flaw, it's your superpower. You just haven't been shown how to live with it, how to protect it, how to trust it, not yet. But you will, because this ache inside you, it's not asking you to become smaller. It's asking you to become yourself, loudly, fully, and without shame, even if no one claps, even if no one understands. Because the truth doesn't need a crowd, it only needs one voice, yours. And it begins the moment you stop asking the world for permission to feel what you've always known. You've worn the mask so long it almost felt like your face. You smiled when you were tired. You nodded when you wanted to scream. You said, "I'm fine," so many times you forgot what truth even sounded like, but deep down, something never stopped watching. A quieter you, a braver you, a version that waited in the shadows, whispering, "This isn't home." And one day the mask cracked, not because you let it, but because it had become too heavy to carry. Maybe it happened slowly, over years of small betrayals, or maybe it came suddenly in the middle of a conversation that broke something open. Either way, something shifted, and you knew you couldn't go back. There's a story. A woman of the sea, a Selkie. She comes to shore, sheds her seal skin, becomes human. A man finds her, falls in love, hides her skin so she cannot return, and so she stays, lives a life, has a child. But her eyes begin to dim, her laughter fades. The ocean calls her in dreams, until one day her child finds her skin and she goes back, not because she didn't love what she had, but because she remembered what she was. That's what this moment is. You remembering. The part of you that writes in secret, that weeps at poetry, that dreams in colors the world has no names for. The part of you that went missing, not because you were weak, but because you were trying to survive. You stopped being you to be accepted, but now you're exhausted by acceptance that costs you your soul. So you begin the return, not loudly, but deliberately. You say no to things you used to tolerate. You stop laughing when you don't find it funny. You begin speaking not just to be heard, but to be known. Carl Jung called it individuation, the integration of the self, not perfection, not ascension, wholeness. It means taking back the pieces you gave away just to be loved. It means naming the parts you were taught to hide. It means saying, "This is who I am," and meaning it, even if it empties the room, because belonging to yourself is not a trend, it's not a retreat, it's a revolution. And when you return, you'll notice something. You don't crave the noise anymore. You don't beg to be seen by people who only ever wanted the performance. You don't feel the need to shrink. Instead, you expand slowly, honestly, unapologetically, and then, without searching, you start to find others, the ones who carry the same strange ache, the ones who don't flinch at your depth, the ones who sit in silence with you and still feel close. They won't ask you to be less, they won't blink at your shadow, they'll meet you in the middle of the ocean. You once tried to leave, and for the first time in a long time, you'll feel home. Not because someone let you in, but because you let yourself return. There comes a point where the pain stops asking for sympathy and starts demanding truth. It stops whispering, "Why me?" and begins asking, "What now?" You've carried pain like it was your shadow, quiet, constant, following you through days no one knew you were surviving. You've functioned while unraveling. You've smiled while breaking. You've become so good at hiding it that even you sometimes forgot it was there until the stillness brought it back. But here's what they never tell you. The pain that lingers isn't always a sign of damage. Sometimes it's evidence of depth. Sometimes it's the birthplace of power. There's a story about Chiron, a centaur wounded by a poisoned arrow that would never heal. But instead of being destroyed by the wound, he transformed it. He became a healer, a mentor, a guide. The wound remained, but it made him sacred. That myth was never about mythology. It was about people like you. You who have carried the ache long after the moment passed. You who still remember what others forgot. You who cry at night because no one stayed long enough to know what it cost you to keep going. Your pain didn't ruin you, it refined you. Carl Jung said, "Only the wounded physician heals." But what he didn't say is that before the healer rises, the wounded one must stay, must feel everything, must walk through fire without answers. Must become the kind of person who knows. You weren't broken, you were being carved open, and the pain, it wasn't the end of you, it was the invitation. The fire didn't burn you to ash, it burned you to essence. You now carry the kind of wisdom that can't be taught in words, the kind you earn in silence, the kind you earn in rooms where you sat alone, feeling everything while the world kept spinning. Here's the truth most will never say: your pain made you luminous. Not despite the wound, but through it. And no, you may never be fully free of it. You may always carry it in some form, but it won't carry you. You will walk taller, speak truer, love wiser, not because you weren't hurt, but because you were. Because you stayed soft, because you kept listening, because you didn't let the ache make you bitter. You let it make you whole. You let it make you you. And if it still hurts, good. That means the light hasn't gone out. That means you're still becoming. You've spent so long trying to belong that you've forgotten what it feels like to be. You softened your voice to avoid sounding too intense. You bent your body language to match the room. You chipped off pieces of yourself until what remained looked agreeable, but unrecognizable. And yet, even when you were liked, you didn't feel loved. Even when you were chosen, you still felt invisible, because what they saw wasn't you. It was your performance, and eventually that performance becomes unbearable. That's when it starts. The return, not the dramatic kind, but the quiet kind. The kind where you stop explaining your silence, the kind where you stop apologizing for crying at things others call small. The kind where you start walking, not toward applause, but toward yourself. Carl Jung called it individuation. The process of reclaiming the parts you gave away in exchange for survival. But this isn't a clean process. You'll grieve your masks. You'll miss the comfort of being liked for the version of you that wasn't real. You'll feel the sting of loneliness, but this time it won't mean abandonment. It will mean alignment, because something sacred rises in that loneliness. You begin to say no to things, to people, to roles that used to own you. You begin to listen, not to who the world says you should be, but to the quiet voice inside that says, I've been here all along. You remember the story of the Selkie, the sea woman who lost her seal skin and lived among humans until one day she found it again. And the moment she touched it, she remembered who she was. You found your sealskin again, you remembered your ocean, and no one, not memory, not fear, not love mistaken for need, can take it from you now. You were never too much. You were simply around people who had never met someone like you. So now you stop searching for rooms that tolerate you and start creating spaces that mirror you. You meet people who don't flinch at your depth, who don't recoil at your truth, who hear the silence behind your words and understand it like a language. They don't complete you, but they let you be whole. And before they arrive, and even if they never do, you begin to notice something softer, more powerful. You belong, not to a person, not to a tribe, not to a temporary sense of acceptance. You belong to the one place you abandoned for years. You belong to yourself. And if this spoke to you, if something stirred while you listened, don't keep it inside. Send it to the one who's been shrinking. The one who writes poetry in the margins, the one who carries light but lives in shadow. Subscribe, not just to this channel, but to the voice inside you that never gave up. Because you started this journey with an ache you couldn't explain. Not a flaw, a signal, not a curse, a calling, and now you know where it's been leading you all along, home.